We all make decisions every day. They determine the course of our lives, from the careers we pursue to the food we eat. Obviously, some decisions are more important than others. Deciding on a career is nowhere near as significant as choosing the right mug for your brew. So the first element of decision making I want to discuss is pros and cons. You've likely heard of this before, whether it's been called advantages and disadvantages, strengths and weaknesses, or things most people think are a good idea and things I think are a good idea. Imagine I have to choose between two girls I'm seeing. They both like me and I like them, but I need to decide which of them to date. This is an example of a situation I'll never be in. But seriously, it's important to realise that all techniques are flawed and that blindly trusting their integrity may lead you down a path that you do not wish to walk. If I'm deciding whether or not I should cut off my leg and I can't come up with any downsides, that would suggest that I should do it, which is not a reasonable conclusion to come to. Although to do this you'd have to be an idiot. Which brings me on to the story of how I lost my leg. Another technique I want to talk about is consensus decision making, which requires a majority of the group to agree, but the minority still have to agree to go along with the majority decision, thus forming a consensus. Now this isn't a problem in my friend group as we actually agree 100% of the time. Now this might sound untrue until you learn that all my friends share one specific characteristic that makes them very agreeable. They're imaginary. So why do we make decisions? Well, behind every decision is a motivator. If I'm hungry, then I'll eat out. Sorry, I mean eat alone. Here's a line. On one end is euphoric bliss and on the other is severe depression. Most of us fall somewhere on this line and it can change all the time. Now you might think you should make decisions that get you as close to this end of the line as possible, but that's not the case. This is because euphoria is not a usual state for a human, so don't go with this philosophy, but likewise don't neglect your happiness entirely, otherwise you will slowly descend into the other extreme. But again, depression is not a normal state for a human and makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to function normally. So where on this line should you be? Well, this is actually very subjective. The average individual with a full-time job that they don't love but don't hate either, a reasonable support system, and who exercises and socialises often, will likely sit somewhere around here. However, individual differences can play a big part in where you fall on this line. For example, I'd fall more into this area, simply because I take a much less optimistic view of life. But it's a good idea when thinking about your decisions to keep in mind how they might affect your position on the line. If you decide to drink a lot of alcohol in one evening, you'll spend most of the night around here, but by morning you'll experience a rapid decompression of both your position on the line and the contents of your stomach. So it's a good idea to become familiar with the line, as if you're out of practice, there's a good chance your belief of where a decision will aim you is actually way off, and you will end up somewhere very unexpected. I always believe video games will positively contribute to my happiness, but after 6 hours, my place on the line has deteriorated almost as much as my sitting position. This discrepancy can lead to a skewed perception of reality, where you believe you're about here, when in reality you're actually here. And you think things can't get much worse, but then you lose your job, your house, and your wife, and then oh, actually it turns out they can. See you next time.